Hello everyone, welcome to chapter 10. In this chapter we'll be talking about moving images. And what we really means is we'll be talking about film and we'll be talking about movies. So before we begin, I would like to show you this short film by Oscar Fischinger. And this short film is actually a non-representational film, and is composed of dancing and interlocking rings and circles that move and evolves across the screen. And Mr. Fischinger actually made this in 1933 during Nazi Germany. And so at that time, the German government was censoring any kind of abstract art because it regarded abstract art as degrading. And so with such censorship, he wasn't able to really show his film as an art form. So actually what he did was he collaborated with a company, and they put the logo of the company at the very end of the film, and they called it a commercial. And so he was able to show it in movie theaters for that reason, and kind of went through the loophole of not being able to show abstract film. And what this really illustrates to us is that of two important points is that really cinema is a mass art that it has always been closely monitored by those in the authority, governments and governmental agencies and such. And also that for a very long time, artists have always been making experimental films. Nowadays, when we think about moving images, when we think about films, when we think about movies, a lot of the times we're thinking about Hollywood blockbusters, we're thinking about mainstream films, but forgetting the fact that actually film, moving images, and movies could also be a form of art. All right, so the advancement of cinema really made a huge jump in the 1800s when Mr. Stanford, Leland Stanford, he's actually the founder of Stanford University, he made a bet with one of his friends one evening, probably at a dinner party, that when a horse runs, he bet that all four of his the horse's hooves would be off the ground at one point in time. And obviously the friend says no, and to settle the bet, he actually hired a photographer named Edward Muybridge to photo a horse while it's running. And as you can see in the image, he won the bet because on the second and third picture on the very top, you can see that all four of the horse's hooves are off the ground. So when a horse runs, that is the way he runs. And actually, if you put all of these images together quickly, you will actually have the illusion of the horse is actually running. And this particular phenomenon is called persistence of vision. And what that is just the illusion of motion. And so the brief retention of an image on the retina of our eyes after a stimulus is removed. And so an example of this is when you were little, I'm sure you guys have all played with a flip book. And basically, as you're flipping through the images, the images retains for a very, very brief moment on the retina, so that it kind of gives you the illusion that all of the images are tied together and that they're actually moving, when it really is not. It's just pages and pages of still images in sequence, and as you're flipping through it, you have the illusion of motion. And now, if we were talking about movies, if we were talking about moving images, we have to talk about Georges Méliès. And he is an early director and a filmmaker that is very famous. And he's particularly famous for the use of special effects. Now, when we're talking about special effects, you probably are thinking about movies like Avatar, you're thinking about the Marvel films, you're thinking about CGIs, computer generated images. But when we're talking about special effects here in the 1900s, we're really just talking about fading in and out of scenes. We're talking about using props. We're talking about very primitive and elementary ways of special effects. So you might not be very impressed, but at that time, this was really a very huge thing in the cinematic world. And now, before I showed you the actual film, Voyage to the Moon, I want to touch on this vocabulary really quickly called a shot. A shot is each piece of film photographed in a continuous running of camera. And now I'm sure you guys all know this. When a director yells out action, when the camera is rolling, that particular rolling of camera is a shot, and it's not until the director says cut that that particular shot is done. So we will be showing you Voyage to the Moon. It's a little bit long, and you can skip around if you like. right, so as we move a little bit forward in time, we see many different techniques developed as far as the art of cinematography goes, and the way film is edited, and different ways the angle and of the shot is filmed. And so, following the Russian Revolution in 1917, filmmaker Sergei Eisenstein really emerged as a major film artist, honored not only in the West but also in the East and all over the world, really. And the important thing that he really developed is the concept of montage. He's really one of the first director that made very big, epic, and awesome films. And in this clips I'm about to show you, it is from the battleship Potemkin. And this particular scene is called the Odessa Steppe sequence. And what this shows you is really his skillful way of editing the shots together to show a montage. Now, the voyage to the moon, what we have seen is the way that the entire film was cut was very linear, and it was very, first this happened, then this happened, then this is very according to time and sequence. But the way that Eisenstein edited this particular sequence is that he cut back and forth very quickly of different things happening all simultaneously in this particular scene. And so it's really his skill use of montage that really heightened the dramatic intensity. And again, montage is really just the editing technique of combining a number of very brief shots representing distinct but related subject matter. And so in order to recreate new relationships and to build strong emotions or to indicate the passage of time. Okay. I'm going to just show you a particular scene from it. So as you can see in this short sequence that there's a lot of things happening. You know, the filmmaker, he could have showed the entire scene just linearly according to time, but he chose to cut back and forth between all these different people. The woman who is distressed because her son is being stepped on and fell over and died, and then there's the group of people, they're also trying to convince the soldier of stop killing, and then people who are running panically down the stairs. So as you can see, he really is using the editing techniques to very skillfully to kind of paint a very intense moment in this particular film. So next we are going to talk a little bit about film noir. Now, when we talk about film noir, we're hitting a little bit closer to home because film noirs are dark and brooding black and white films that originated in Hollywood in the 1940s. And some of these films are really fantastic and they're still very relevant today. Now, this particular film called Human Desires, I'm about to show you a clip, is actually from 1950s, but it is definitely from the style of film noir. A lot of the times they're very mysterious, and they're usually about stories of suspense, of murder and crime, and they're really great fun to watch.
They must have found him by now.
An hour later, what difference does it make?
Why'd you take that money from him?
They'll think it was a robbery. Sure carried a bankroll, didn't he? Don't bother to look, it's not there.
Burn it, Carl. Please.
You like that one? We're gonna go on like Owens never existed. Better, maybe.
Oh, Carl.
Owens was an accident I took care of, that's all.
If you don't burn that letter, it means the end of everything.
No. This letter's gonna keep us together. There's not gonna be anybody else, Vicky. There's nobody else.
To me, film noirs are very beautiful films because they're shot in black and white, and the lighting usage in these films to create such a mysterious atmosphere is really very skillful and very beautiful to me. Now, when we were talking about film, again, you know, film noir was developed in Hollywood, and it was a very mainstream type of filmmaking. But like we said in the beginning of the class, we'll be talking a lot about experimental film as well. And we will be ending this class talking about a very artistic and interesting film that I will have you guys talk about as our discussion topic this week. But anyways, if we're talking about surrealist film, we were talking about experimental film, we're talking about abstract film, we really have to talk about this film called Un Chien Andalou, which literally means an Andalusian dog. And it was done in 1920s by Salvador Dali and Louis Buñuel. Anyways, I'm going to show you a clip from it, and it really is supposed to represent a dream sequence. And it, a lot of the times watching it is very confusing because you don't really know what is happening. And it's not until perhaps you talk to the artists themselves you can really grasp of what they're trying to say. So it's actually a silent film with a musical accompaniment, but actually I'm just gonna show you guys the clip and you guys can see for yourself. Gonna show you a small clip from the middle of it. Now, this just shows you a little bit of the surrealist film and how confusing it could be and how interesting it is. As you can see, the woman in the beginning, and he was attacking her, but then he started to pull these two grand pianos with dead donkeys on top and dragging two men with him. And then all of a sudden, she runs through the door, and if you really notice that the way the door that was closing, it was not the same door, and then he ended up on a bed, and then she disappears, and then the double door that opens ended up being a single door. It's all very interesting and confusing, but I think that is the charm of it, and that is the interesting part of this surrealist film. And so that really brings us to this very last piece we'll talk about that is much more recent to our time. It was done in 2002 by the artist Matthew Barney. And it's called Cremaster 3, The Order. And anyways, and this is actually included in your discussion topic this week. I have included a short clip of it into the discussion, and I want you guys to watch it and really tell me how you feel and what you think about it. Like Un Chien Andalou, it could be very confusing and it could be kind of frustrating to watch it and not really know what is going on. But I would like you guys to talk about your first reaction, your immediate reaction to it, and then perhaps do a tiny bit of research online to see what other people say about it, and then kind of talk about it this week. It will be very fun. So anyways, that is chapter 10 about moving images. I will see you guys in chapter 11.